Welcome to another episode of our Lessons Learned, where we're speaking with the members from our Cybersecurity Awareness Manager community. Oh, that was really long. Security Awareness community. So, really excited this week to have Mark with us. Mark is a GRC officer specialist. And Mark, I'm going to hand it over to you and let you introduce yourself.
All right, thanks. Awesome. Also, thank you for the invite to anybody or everybody that's listening. So my name is Mark. You can see through Mark the African, and that's the reason why I've got the headgear is representation of what I really do. So I
Nice.
am based in South Africa, just the people are aware, but born in Zambia. Um,
Okay.
I am a GRC, and for those who are not so clued up on what that means, this is governance, risk, compliance, or control. Um, and in simple terms, it just means I have to oversee risk, right? I just have to
Hmm.
understand risk. I have to know how to mitigate risk. But on top of that, a big chunk that I'm passionate about myself is around um, developing a security culture, and that's where security awareness really comes into play. And yeah, so that's really a bit about me from a work front. On a personal side, I don't really look like a cybersecurity expert. That's what everyone says. Everyone thinks I'm in marketing or something like that. Well, I'm an artist, and I say I'm an artist at heart. So,
There you,
you are an artist anyway. Each and every
I
one of
think
us are.
security awareness is an art in itself. So,
It really is. It's like marketing, right? Marketing is an art. You can't just be a
yes.
marketer. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, like on my spare time, things I love to do. I'm very big about health, mental wellness
Hmm.
to be specific. Big advocate for talking about it in our communities and being quite vulnerable.
That's
Very
great.
much love doing exercise, yoga, meditation, reading. Currently reading Atomic Habits by James Clear. Pretty awesome book. And another thing that I really do enjoy is wine. And funny enough, I've been on a break for a month, so it's like this today is a special occasion because it's like I'm going to reintroduce my palate to it.
Nice. Very nice. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and I'm really excited. One of the things that caught my eye with you in our community and what you talk about is your passion around security awareness. And you had a post recently that talked about, you're torn between compliance and
Yeah,
between, awareness and empathy and the human. So
yeah.
I thought maybe we can just kind of start there, and what kind of, I guess, what first stuck out to you that kind of developed that, and maybe even what got you into security awareness, because as we were talking before, that security awareness isn't like a role right now that people are hired for. It's more of like, oh, and by the way, you're going to be in charge of this program. So like,
Yeah,
what, how
so
did you get into it?
so I funny enough, I'll share a story of how I got into the role that I'm in.
Please do.
Is firstly because I talk, right? So I tell stories. I like to always speak. So I was at a conference. It was an internal conference around security, and really speaking passionately, I had just read "Start with Why" by Simon Sinek, right?
Mm,
And really looking at how he was talking about, I think it's the golden circles, the 15 circles, and he's talking about how we need to always start with why, right? Because people resonate with why you do something more so than what you do. Um,
right.
so it was in that conference, and I kept on reiterating, why do we do security? Why do we do security? Why do we do this, right? And it caught the attention of the person who actually hired me. And this was a couple of years back. So I was just passionate about it, but I wasn't necessarily in the cybersecurity role. And
Hmm.
then a few months down the line, he reached out to me and was like, I'm building a team and you're passionate about it. I can't say I had the general background, right? I'm a comp sci major, right? So developing and hiding in the corner was really my thing. So for him, he was like, we need to make cyber exciting. We need to
Hmm.
really market it and give it a face. And
Right.
he was like, you are an awesome candidate for that role. And I was like, sure. But he was like, on top of that, you still have to do your governance, risk, and compliance. So I was like, okay, cool. I was like, I have an idea of governance, risk, and compliance.
Hmm.
I was actually not really an idea, at least average with it. And when I started the role, the big focus was on how I can tie the two in. Is how do we get people to understand what is governance? How do we get people to understand what are risks, what are compliance, what are security controls, and that's where really the awareness aspect really boomed on my side. And
Right.
that's my journey really into the role that I'm in. So it's I've got the storytelling awareness hat, but I still have to have the really stern governance, how we work. We have to really make sure that this and this is in place, right? And
Right.
monitor to make sure that our risk is being managed well enough, but also our people understand how to manage the risk. Yeah, so
So
that's really my story.
I think that's great. So storytelling then comes naturally to you. That's not something that's really like you've had to really learn. It's just kind of part of you naturally.
It's two sides of the coin. It's two sides of
Let's
the
hear
coin.
it.
So I have been a storyteller, I think, all my life,
Hmm.
but for you to be able to maintain the audience, you need to keep on practicing. So you need to keep on learning on what are the techniques that are needed to make a captivating story, right?
Right.
It's not just I can give you the same script and we can read it out, but the audience would respond differently
Hmm.
because it's not just about telling the story, it's about how you tell the story and what emotions you're trying to evoke or get people to feel,
Right.
right? So there are a few things that you have to do. As I said, I'm a chatterbox. I love to talk. I love to engage with people, and I've been like that. It's funny because today I was speaking with my mom, and she sent a picture of me at a very young age, and she's just like, I can't believe that you were this small child at this age. Who I was standing on top of a coffee table, and she's
Uh-huh.
like, it was off a really traumatic incident where I'd fallen off something, and like I had a cut over my eye
Oh no.
and it was just that, right? But she was so nostalgic in the sense that she's like, this is the child that was such a chatterbox, and you haven't changed except for your physical appearance. You're still a child who wants to explore and who wants to be a chatterbox. But she's like, there's some tact in how you do these things now,
Nice.
and really that like lit me up because I'm like, with you develop the skill of being able to tell a story and how you can be able to get people to know that at this point I was feeling sad or at this point
Hmm.
I was feeling elated, right? And the expression. So as you speak, you get people to hold on to that emotion at that point in time. If I'm trying to bring in suspense, even in my variation, I can be able to speak, slow down, and then captivate and then share with the message that I want to do so that it lasts longer in someone's subconscious. So yeah,
Right.
those are things that I've had to pick up. So it's a bit of both.
Right.
Chatterbox, met experience, and built it.
Right. And keep honing it, right? Honing it even
Yeah,
if it was natural.
it's a
Right.
forever experience. I think, oh, it's a forever lesson if you want to tell stories, right? It's just a continual process. The reason is because you meet different audiences, and different
Yes.
audiences need different ways that you can communicate with them and tell them a story. Someone who is, let me say, if I'm speaking to a mom about security, it'd be very different if I'm speaking to a toddler or if I'm speaking to a teenager on TikTok. Two different
Hmm.
conversations, but I have to be able to tell the story that can relate for both of them, right?
Right.
And it could be on the same topic. It could just be on whatever it might be, dangers of social media, right? And
Right.
it's still same topic, but different way that it's executed, different way that I make it relatable to them, and those are the things I've had to pick up over the years.
So how can we how have you applied this in your security awareness program at work? You know, whether in conversations you've had or official programs like official trainings or, can you give us like an example of, some of the instances of effective storytelling or maybe even storytelling that flopped because, X, Y, or Z. we
Okay,
we
so
encourage both.
so yeah, we do encourage both. So maybe let me put it. I love to use examples. Again, this is a
Yes,
brilliant thing
that's
about
what I love
storytelling.
too.
Is storytelling is about examples. It's about using these little what do we call them again? Oh my goodness, slipped my brain. That's fine. I'll stick with those simple term examples, right? So you know the saying where it says that I think you can take the horse to the river, but you can't
Hmm.
make the, you
You
can't
can
make
lead a
the,
horse to water, but you can't make them
but you
drink.
can't make it drink, right?
Yeah, I'm from
Okay,
Texas.
so,
We use
so,
that one a lot.
and I didn't even know that you're from Texas. So this is actually great that I'm using this particular
Perfect.
example. Is storytelling is a similar thing, right? So in we're thinking about security training, right? We
Hmm.
will tell the horse, and I'm not trying to be funny with tailgate, but if they're a horse, none of you are horses.
Right, right.
We're telling
Very nice.
people that they need to do this, right?
Hmm.
We guide them towards the resources and say, we
Right.
need you to drink this so that you can be healthy, right? And if we don't understand whether the horse is thirsty, it's not going to drink, right?
Hmm.
And that's the
Right.
thing is you need to understand what are the things that makes the horse thirsty and what will encourage it to drink water. So at the end of the day, it's not me needing to take it to the water. It will understand that when it's thirsty, it knows where to find the water.
Hmm.
So just using that analogy now is what I've done is I've got to have intimate conversations with different stakeholders in business. Is I need to understand what motivates you. I need to understand what is your way of work.
Hmm.
What is your day-to-day task? What frustrates you? And then from that understanding, see how to apply and embed security into it, right? So the
Right.
training needs to be relevant to what you do. I need to be able
Right.
to enable you. So I'll give a good example. Let's talk about marketing, right? And I'm
Hmm.
thinking because you just mentioned a few minutes ago that you know that's where you are, right? So let's talk about marketing. And when we think about marketing, I think about products, and I'm thinking about sales. Sales, I'm trying to get you guys to get this thing. I need you to understand that you need it, right? And in that light, I'm selling you this product, I'm telling you about this thing. But if I also say that as you're using this product, you need to be aware that other people are going to come to you and want to sell you similar products. So these are the things you need to look out for. When you're
Okay.
marketing to a customer, you need to legitimize all of those engagements with them. You need to be able to say that when you use this product, it also means that, how can I put it? Let me think of something like internet. You use the internet, great, great, awesome product, but you need to be aware that other people will use it for bad reasons. So be careful what you post on it, right? So I have to make it relevant to a person when they're doing it. I have to make sure that they see the value of adding this thing to how they work so that the person at the end, right, will start applying it in their life. If you're working in a finance space and you are consistently sharing financial statements, and I just need to say that, look, I know you're sharing financial statements, but think about it like sharing your child's information with somebody, right? You don't, you're sharing it with the doctor, but you don't want other people to know. So you have to
Right.
find a secure channel to talk to that doctor when you're
Right.
sharing that information. And I'm like, in your work, same way. And then I present to them and like, these are the tools that we use, whether it's a Microsoft product, um,
Right.
or whatever it may be. I'm like, these are techniques you can use to just incorporate into your work to protect what you're doing. It may look
Right.
small, but if you add it all up, if each and every person's playing their part, it becomes really big and impactful, right?
Hmm.
So that's something that I've always just tried to do is just understand where people are at. I understand where what work they do, what's their business as usual, and then say that, these are small things you can just add. It doesn't require you to go through hoops.
Right.
It's just an extra thing that you just look out for. If you're receiving emails, have a look at who sent it to you and just be sure that, the person who sent it is indeed who it is. And, if you're not sure, oh, we've given you a solution. You can click here,
Right.
or you can report there to let us know, and we will verify it for you, right? So that
Right.
little additional step in your day-to-day work doesn't take away from your work, but essentially it adds towards the bigger security strategy that we're putting in place of
Right.
developing this culture of just being aware. It's security awareness. We need to be aware of the security that is there. We
Right.
need to be aware of security tactics to reduce the risk in our spaces. And that's really how I've been. It's about just being human, understanding that I need to listen before I can then say, this is how something can apply and be beneficial to your
Right.
line of work. Yeah.
So outside of one-on-one conversations you have, like how do you scale it, right? How do you kind of scale the ability to listen and then to apply storytelling or empathy, in conveying secure tactics and secure mindsets? Like what are some of the ways that you've gone about it to try to do, at a bigger scale? Because obviously you can't spend all your time talking to everybody.
Sure.
You got that GRC side still you got to do,
Exactly.
but how do you overcome that?
So this is where a lot of the learning really comes in is you need to be able to separate the business, right? So you've got maybe your technology side, you've got your finance side. So one of the things is separate the business, separate the audience. So let's make it easy to separate the audience. And you think about what are the things that generally would pose a threat. So if I think about technology, and I think that if their technology is not up to scratch or it's outdated, that's a
Hmm.
threat to them doing their work. That's a
Right.
threat to them being able to effectively meet their targets, right? And but also a bigger threat is from a security perspective. There's other things that get targeted. So for me, it's to sort of do a mapping first of all, right? And then I've done my best where I try to get conversations with leaders in those spaces,
Hmm.
right? So it's not, as you mentioned, you can't speak to every person. It's easy if maybe you're in a startup organization where you really
Right.
are only got 20 employees. It's
Hmm.
really easy. But what if you've got 10,000 employees across the world, right? Then
Right.
that's very different. So that's where the leaders really come in. And for me, it's engaging with the leaders on that
Hmm.
platform because I'm reducing the amount of people I need to engage with.
Right.
Right. So first is engage with the leaders and say, look, you are the leader in the finance space. What do you think your role is when it comes to securing your domain? Right. I always started off with a question because it's good to just get an idea of what they think. Right.
Hmm.
And I think from there, that's when now I have this conversation and also urge them, and I'm like, look, let's have a chat. Let me come into your environment whenever you have a session with your teams, right? Because you are the gateway to that to every
Right.
person there, right? You're responsible for your area. You're accountable for your area, and people will listen to you. And you
Hmm.
know your area more than I do. I'm the security expert, you're the expert in finance. So let me come into your area whenever you're hosting anything which is addressing staff in your area or people in your area regarding finance, and let me incorporate my security message in it, right? But I need your backing. I need your support. Um,
Right.
and this is where it's really key in that the empathy of understanding what are the challenges that leader faces in terms of just meeting their own business objectives, and how
Right.
can then security enable them to meet that, right? Because
Exactly.
it,
Yeah.
it always comes up so often, and I'm sure you get this, is where it's looked at as security as a barrier. It looks at, okay, you guys are the gatekeepers. You guys are saying, no, we can't go. And the thing is, because if you don't spend that time to sort of empathize and understand what
Hmm.
they're also trying to achieve, you won't know how to enable them,
Right.
right? A simple example, again, as I said, I love to use examples and analogies, is you can't go out into the street and give people, let's just say, give people money, right? And think that will solve problems, right? When you're not necessarily listening to them, you need to
Hmm.
create the platform, you need to create the stage or the space where they can come to you and say, these are the things that affect us.
Hmm.
These are the things we need to meet in our domain. And then you need to then bring in your security hat and say, okay, but these are the things that we can do to enable you to get to this, right? And
Right.
not be the person who's going to be holding you back. Fair enough, it looks like that at the beginning because everyone's got targets. But the
Yeah.
more we gel, the more we speak, the more we have these conversations, especially with leadership on my side, is you get them to now understand why security or how security is an enabler and why it's
Hmm.
important. It starts off
Right.
really tough because you need to fix a lot of stuff at the beginning, but
Right.
when it's smooth, you're spending less time fixing and spending more time being more proactive and going forward because you're not worried about the things at the back, the basics and the fundamentals, right? So
Yeah.
it opens up a whole new space for them. And that's really how I've done it. And then the other thing is really trying to have as many, like, webinar sessions. And it's live webinar sessions with different people in the organization. So, maybe introduce someone who is sitting in new businesses or something like that and say, you've got a new business perspective, I've got a security perspective. Let's have a conversation and let's invite people onto this live. Let's get people
Hmm.
to chat, to have a engagements like what we're doing right now, because that gives us a feel of what people are thinking. That gives us a
Yeah.
feel of other people sharing their feedback in such an open platform and gives me an opportunity to get the question. And if I don't have an answer, I'm like, I have no idea. Let me get back to you on this
Hmm.
question. Or I might have an answer on the spot and I can be like, well, I didn't realize that this is what people think. So
Right.
this is what we actually need, right? So those
Right.
those type of engagements where it's both a type of like webinar type of scenario, or more with each and every business unit and their leaders to get them to
Hmm.
jump on board because cyber is a journey, right? It's a
It
journey
is.
type of thing. It's
Right.
not a department's role to be able to ensure that we're secure. It's really group work. It is
Yeah.
100% group work for us to be able to actually get this done. And that's
Right.
always what I try to incorporate in my message is that it's not just
Hmm.
me, it's us. And if the risk hits us, we all get affected.
Right.
So we get that
Right.
ownership, and that's really important. That's where empathy comes in, is to get the ownership in. So yeah,
Hmm.
that's what I've managed to do to be able to scale it wide. Is that I use the leaders, get their
Yeah.
buy-in, right? Get them to understand that the risk is real. Sometimes it's not the best pill to swallow, right? So got to put on that governance risk hat and say the risk is real, but we're here. We're here to ensure
Right.
that we minimize the risk together because we're in
Hmm.
it together, right? So it's a partnership that we form and we go on this journey. We know there'll be
Right.
hiccups, but we're going on the journey. We're just iterating.
Right.
It feels rigorous, but the idea is that you're not doing it alone.
Right.
And we're
Exactly.
not just pointing a finger to say you need to do it, you've got risk, you've got risk. We're like, no, we all have risk. So let's all work together.
Right. It's not all just on one person or one department,
No,
right? And
no.
I think from one of the conversations with a past member, not a past member, a member from a past live, we were talking about, he was doing a program and sharing the stats for, like, the monthly updates to the whole company so they could see, oh, look, we've improved in our reporting. And then he would, like, give, like, I think he had an incentive for, people who reported phishing, then they got like a gift card, or entered into a drawing for a gift card or something. So people were incentivized, to pay attention to these reports. But one of the things he did, he didn't realize how it would be perceived. And he was saying, oh, these are the people who were targeted the most this month in email attacks, you know, and they thought it was this negative, like, oh no, like, like he's calling them out. And he had to finally, he's like, no, 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 no. And I was like, I'm showing you so you can be aware, just to know that you're, the bullseye is on you right now. So really be, diligent. And so once he kind of had that conversation and cleared the air a little bit, it helped it, turn from feeling like they were being attacked to saying, no, like, no, this is a group effort. This is a team effort. This is just for educational and learning and awareness, not to, not to attack anyone. But
Yeah.
so that's an important thing, and that's a hard thing because I think it comes from maybe physical security, and people translate it into the digital because digital is such a, a intangible thing. And
Mm.
so, we feel like, oh, if I have my digital security, I have my physical security team, right? And they protect me, the fence protects me, and it's all separate from me, right? While in reality, how we behave also affects our physical security. We have to have our own sense of awareness and, the around surroundings. but we don't usually apply that so much, and we forget that part of it, that we think security is this thing, even physically separate, apart from me. I just stay behind the fence and I'm okay, or whatever it might be. Um, and so I think that's one of the hurdles we have to overcome. Do you have any tools or books, resources that you have found helpful in kind of either helping with your storytelling, or did you take a course to kind of help hone, or is just something you kind of picked up on your own through different resources?
Um, I'll say the best resource that's there, read fictional books. That's the best resource you can do is read fictional books. Reason is because so I love reading Stephen King. Right? So I'm a very
Uh-huh.
huge horror fan, and I keep asking myself, why am I captivated to go back to some of these things, right?
Hmm.
But it's just in the way that he reaches out to this particular audience, right? He knows how to be, a person who can engage, who can be full of suspense, and I picked up a lot of my storytelling through just reading books, just generally reading
Hmm.
fictional books, and just sort of understanding how authors are doing this. Like, why am I flipping pages? Another person that I love reading is Dan Brown. And I'll
Hmm.
never forget Dante's Inferno because I think that book is like probably over 700 pages and I read it in 2 days. My mother
Wow.
was shouting at me saying, why can't you let go of that book? And I'm like, I don't know, but I'm just going to keep on reading it. So I think reading. Reading is one key thing that you can't really get away from. Just read fictional books um, because it gives you a sense of how authors captivate people. There's a reason that authors are great at what they do, that they take years
Hmm.
to write books. Second thing really is, and it's a simple thing, but not always so easy, is a mirror. So people might ask why a mirror is just looking at yourself in the mirror and telling yourself a story. Look at your
Hmm.
facial expressions, right? Are you showing happiness? Are you showing sadness? Are you showing anger, right? It's the facial expressions, especially if you're going to be on camera. So a mirror is also your best friend. And I think a lot of us don't want to look in the mirror when we like before
Right.
presentation, like we don't because we're afraid of what our face looks like, right? We don't know whether we're looking okay, and we're more worried
Hmm.
about that. But I'm like, be encouraged to face yourself because that's what the audience sees, right? That's what the
Right.
audience is used to, and as nerve wracking as it may be, but being able to talk to yourself in the mirror and just reiterating a story or something, a lesson that you want to deliver, actually really encourages you. So reading books, looking at a mirror. Another thing that I also do love to do is listening to podcasts, right?
Hmm.
Because now that's where you get to hear how people speak and how they're trying to captivate you depending on what it is, right? And those are things that I've found to be really helpful in storytelling, right?
Hmm.
It's things that you have around you. There's books, there's mirrors, there's things you can listen to, podcasts specifically, because people who do podcasts or the really great podcasts come from people who are storytellers. They
Which
realize,
one that you listen to that you recommend that's really great for that?
oh, I will definitely say my own. I do my own podcast, so it's called Journey with Mark. You can find it on Spotify. You can find it on
Okay.
YouTube as well. So I would say listen to mine. Um, I go back, like I've recorded it, and I do go back because sometimes I'm like, oh my goodness, did I say that? Oh, I didn't realize. But I learn and pick up because you're so quick to
Hmm.
pick up stuff. The reason I'm saying I use my own as well is where I pick up where I might have made a mistake or where I
Right.
might have done something off, and I can really
Right.
self-reflect a bit better.
It's that
And reading
analyzing. Hmm.
exactly. So that's another thing. I know I've got my I think it's Brave Leadership. That's
Hmm.
by David McQueen. Really
Okay.
great storyteller, really great guy. He talks about leadership. He talks about how to engage with leadership. He talks about having the difficult conversation, which essentially when you're in security is what you're doing all the time. You're having
Hmm.
difficult conversations with businesses, right? So those are great resources. Those are great podcasts that I can actually say. And then, I mean, if you're a security awareness manager, I will definitely say read Transformational Security Awareness by Perry
Okay.
Prophet. Really, great book because he explains so well in terms of how security awareness is looked at really from just a compliance and awareness perspective, but it doesn't get into the next realm of transformational, which essentially influences the culture, right?
Hmm. Right.
Um,
And that's the
that's
big,
what we
that's
want
the
to do.
big
That's
key.
that's the that's the juice of any awareness
Right.
program is how you can show that we're transforming how people do things, right? So I'll say that's a really great book to read. If you read that book, I can guarantee you that you will find a lot of insightful nuggets in it. He's really good at how he does it, and he also has his podcasts around
Okay.
talking about security. So Perry Carpenter, really,
Fabulous.
really great. So I can really advise that you know what that's what you can do. In terms of things like empathy, just listen more. Try to literally just listen. I know it's difficult. That's one of
Yeah.
the hardest things I still consistently need to learn is just to listen. Listen to listen, not listening to respond, not listening to
Right.
give an answer or judge. It's listening to listen, where if the
It's
person
very
actually
hard.
asks you, can you repeat what I just said?
Hmm.
You can and you
Hmm.
realize how difficult that is because our brain is always trying to analyze information. But if you can
Right.
just learn that at all, which I've done through meditation, not all the time, but meditation assists
Hmm.
where you can just sit to listen. And
Hmm.
if you don't understand, it's okay to say, sorry, I don't understand. Please could you repeat? Please could you? That's what you need
Right.
to do. You always need to be inquisitive. So those are
Right.
instances for me on the empathy side. On the storytelling, read, listen to people. Whoever inspires you as well, if you can find stuff from them, listen to them.
Right.
Right, yeah, like for me, David McQueen really inspires me a lot because he's so very thought provoking and quite cheeky. So he really gives those tongue in cheek type of comments, but makes you think. And I love
Right.
that because he's unapologetic and not afraid to share his perspective, knowing we'll have a difficult conversation, but it's not coming from a place of malice, but it's coming from a place of let's learn and let's have this
Right.
difficult conversation because that's where the building blocks of learning are. So
Right.
yeah, that's on my side, really.
Those are great. Those are great nuggets, great resources. I'll definitely include those also in the recap that we'll write up after this. Do you have any other nuggets or takeaways you want to share before we wrap up? You think you
Oh,
covered it?
I think I covered it. I think
I think
I
it was
think
good.
yeah, I think it was good in terms of other nuggets. I think if you're not so privy in terms of security, really I think you can always learn so many resources. I think that's one key thing is just
Right.
have that learning spirit. There's resources if you can find things like on Udemy, Coursera, just read
Right.
up on it. And again, security awareness, I'll just say this for security awareness managers. I was telling myself this, I'm like, unfortunately, if your business is not about selling security, you are a support function. And it sucks when someone tells you that you're a support function. But I want you to go back a little bit and understand how powerful having support is. If you think about it,
Mm.
I'm going to use simple analogies. If you think about support for your back, how important that is. Support where it's coming from family or friends, how important that is. Understand that just because you're called a support function doesn't mean you're
Right.
unimportant. It means that you play a crucial role in the background to
That's a great
ensure
point.
that you can be able to keep people afloat.
Right.
That's a key thing.
I
Yeah.
love that. That's great. Well, thank you
Awesome.
so much. And talking about those resources, we also have, as part of our security awareness community, a growing list of crowdsourced resources from the different managers in our community. So I'll add that to it as well, what you shared. And please join our community if you're also an awareness manager, and we'd love to have you. Thank you so much, Mark, the African. This was amazing. I really enjoyed speaking with you and learning a little more. You had some great insights. So have a great day and look forward to
Well,
being in touch with you.
awesome. Thank you as well for having me.